Hey guys, so this is our last video of the series of portion sizing, and today we're gonna be talking about macronutrients or the method of counting macronutrients. This is probably the most popular method nowadays, and so that means that there's a lot of different applications. So I want to make the safety that I'm generalizing a little bit, and I know that as I'll explain later, that there's very good applications of the method and very bad applications of the method. But I will generalize for the sake of explaining it to you. So the method is very simple. It requires a scale, and it requires probably an application on your phone or your computer. And what you do is you track the weight of any food. And in tracking the weight of any food, you use an application or like even a book to know how many what's the macronutrient breakdown of that food. There's three main macronutrients that you probably already know if you're watching this video: fat, protein, and carbs. And so what we're tracking is how many carbs, how many grams of carbs, how many grams of protein, and how many grams of fat are in a given food. And I track that throughout my day in my application, and then at the end of the day, I know exactly how many grams of protein I ate, how many grams of carbs, and how many grams of fat I ate through the day. For the vast majority of people that follow this method, there's an assumption there that happens, and is that most people will have certain numbers to hit. So a person will say like, okay, I'm gonna try to eat 120 grams of protein per day, 80 grams of fat, and 200 grams of carbs, right? Like, and that breakdown is gonna come from any possible source: a dietitian, a nutrition coach, a book, right? It comes from like somewhere. What I'll tell you in advance, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, is that even though we know a lot about macronutrients in the nutrition world, there's no topic right now that is as contentious as macronutrients, in the sense that like we don't know, there's no model that tells us that like a person should eat a given number of protein. Like we haven't agreed even if like high fat or low fat, like there's no consensus whatsoever there. And actually for me, just the belief that there should be a given macronutrient breakdown is problematic, in the sense that like your ancestors that were very healthy, the ones that were very healthy, were probably eating very different stuff throughout the day, and there was certainly not a macronutrient breakdown that was fixed. But anyhow, I'm getting ahead of myself. So yes, so that's the method. I'm following macronutrients. I'm using a scale and a digital application, probably something like MyFitnessPal, but there's 700 applications out there in the market that can be better or worse depending on your goals. Good. So this time I created 3 plates in advance that have all the same macronutrient breakdown, and I want to show them to you, and we'll talk about them a little bit. And then I'll talk about like the advantages of this method and the disadvantages of this method. So let me show you my plates. Let me see. I think I'm getting better at this. I should be. I have done it enough times. There you go. There are my plates. Good. So I have 3 foods right here. 1, 2, 3. Can you see? Oh, there you go. Awesome. So this right here is a kind protein bar. It's made out of peanut butter, and as it says here, is made from real food. Because some of the food they make doesn't come from real food. Anyhow, the food industry is fucked up. So I based everything out of this bar. So this bar has, in the nutrition facts here, this bar has 18 grams of fat, of which 4 are saturated fat. It has 17 grams of carbohydrates, and it has 12 grams of protein. This bar. Good. In the method of macronutrient on this method, what you will do, like you will probably use your phone to scan this nicely barcode here, and it will go into application all the numbers, and you don't even have to think, which is one of the things that people love about this method. They don't have to think. I think that's bad, but whatever. Good. I'm getting ahead of myself. Good. Second plate here. I have half a tablespoon of peanut butter or a half a pear. Look at that deliciousness. Oh man, now I'm hungry. That peanut butter is this one. Half a serving there is going to be like around 8 grams of fat with some protein. And I have an egg here. This egg, by the way, comes from hens that I personally know and have pet, and that are the daughters of my friend Amy, who raised them and feeds them the best quality food. So this egg is not only made out of with love and care, it's also full of good nutrients. Good. And this piece of prosciutto that is not the best quality actually, but you know, it's what I had in my fridge. Good. So the breakdown of this thing is a little bit higher on, just a tiny bit higher, like 1 or 2 grams, a little bit higher on the protein side. So this is gonna have 15, this has 12, but it's pretty much the same. The rest in terms of fat is gonna have 18 grams too. And the pear is gonna have pretty much the same amount of carbohydrates than this one. This is I think 18 grams or something like that. And so yeah, so these two are very, very, very similar, 1 or 2 grams of difference there. And then I have my third plate. Look at the size of this thing. This has 85 grams of power greens, so all different kinds of leaves. It has 100 grams of different cabbages of all colors. It has 1 tomato, 1 full tomato, and it has 2 ounces of chicken breast. And because just like that doesn't have fat, I will add a tablespoon of mayo. I usually use this avocado one, or I could add a tablespoon of olive oil, and that will bring me pretty much to the same numbers. Actually, this one will be a little bit shorter, both in terms of fat and carbohydrates, by around 3 grams. So, you know, good. So as you see there, the first thing that I want you to notice is that the method of macronutrients doesn't capture the difference between these 3 foods, which is the same that happens when you're counting calories. And that happens because tracking macronutrients and tracking calories are the same thing. You just have to multiply by 9 and 4 and you'll get calories. So it's really just the same thing. So the problems are inherited. Good. Second thing that I want you to notice is that in that method, unless you're paying really attention, for your method, for your tracking tool, all these foods will be considered equal, right? And they're clearly, as you can see, they're not. Good. Good. So let's talk let's talk now about the problems of this method and the good things about this method. So let's start with the good things. So the good things about this method, let me put my face back on. There you go. The good thing about this method is that if you know what you're doing, if you're paying a lot of attention and can understand how different these 3 plates are, you will learn a lot and you'll be able to be very precise. As long as you're like noticing that these 3 things are very different, right? And you'll be very precise because you're gonna be able to be precise through the days. That is one cool thing. Another cool thing is, like, as I said, that you will learn a lot about different foods. And I think it's practical to a degree. I think once you learn how to use your whatever app that you're using on your scale, is practical. Like you can use it. I think whenever you are eating out, it's a pain in the ass because traveling with the scale is not the most it's not the best thing. I track my macronutrients for 3 years and I travel with my scale like a weirdo to restaurants and everywhere, like, so that people will bring me a plate and I will measure and like be like, oh no, maybe that's not. And I decided that after 3 years of doing that, the benefits were inexistent and it was not worth it, and so anyhow, but that was just my personal experience. So I think it's practical to a degree, and so yeah, it's precision you can learn and it's kind of practical. Good, but let's talk about the things that are problematic. The first thing that is problematic, as I said, is the assumption that there's a breakdown of macronutrients that is optimal. That is a very big assumption, and for which we have definitely not consensus. If you talk to a vegetarian person, they will have arguments and reasons to back up that like a diet should be high in carbohydrates. If you talk to a carnivore person, he's gonna tell you that like a diet should be high in fats and proteins. So there's really not a consensus whatsoever. There's no real science backing up any side, and just the assumption is so strong, believing that like there's a ideal ratio there, and that is, it's a bad assumption. I always like to remind people that we're made to last. Our body's made to adapt, and it probably loves more variance than anything else. But anyhow, so that's the first problem. The second problem is that because your method doesn't discern into these three different quality foods, even though you might be paying attention, most people end up not end up just like, well, today I'm gonna do Jimmy John's because it has as many carbs and whatever, and this method, okay, is that, and if that's problematic, I'll tell you why. The way your body processes this and the way your body processes this is completely different. It doesn't matter that it has the same number of carbohydrates and proteins and fats. The effect on your body is different. First, this is processed really fast because of the sugars and because the foods have been very processed to make it this little nice, tight, small thing. And so, sweet. And so this will create, usually, depends a little bit on the person, but we can put money on that this will raise your your blood sugar higher than this would ever do. Which means that this guy that is not very dense also is gonna create an insulin reaction, and that insulin reaction is gonna tell your body that like that sugar that is in your bloodstream has to go into muscle. When you're eating this, you probably already had breakfast, maybe not even, but we don't need as much sugar in our bloods as we think, as much sugar in our muscles as we think. So some of that is gonna just rapidly be turned into fat. And the cost, just because this is so high in sugar and so like you don't need to process that much, the cost of processing this for your body, the cost of turning this into energy, it takes energy to turn this into energy, right? Like it's not free. It's not like the body is like, ooh, 100 calories, they all turn into energy. No, this shit has to be converted. Like it's a whole process. The process of converting this into energy is much cheaper than converting this into energy. This is like a bad movie that your body processes really fast, doesn't have to pay a lot of attention to it, and when it comes out, it's empty. It doesn't have a lot of nutrients. Just look at it. I know that's not enough, but you know, it doesn't have a lot of ingredients. It's like, and they have you so processed that it has many nutrients. So it's like a bad movie in which you don't have to spend a lot of brain power, and you don't get a lot out of it. This is like a good movie in which you have to spend a lot of brain power, and you're gonna get a lot of nutrients out of it. So this one is gonna actually put you in a little bit, like if you're thinking about calories, this is gonna put you in a bigger caloric deficit just because you're putting 100 and it takes you like 20 to process, and you're putting in here 100 and it takes you 40 to process, right? Because not all calories are fucking created equal, not all carbohydrates are created equal, not everything is a calorie. That's the last thing about this method, is that like one of the things that hides is just that, just like counting calories, macronutrients are not the only thing about food. Macronutrients are the nutrients that can be turned into energy, but that's just part of the equation. There's a lot of nutrients here that are not turned into energy and that still have an effect on your body that is very positive. Think vitamins, think minerals, think all the nutrients that your body doesn't turn into energy, but that your gut bacteria has to turn into energy for them to survive and for them to do the job that they need to do in your gut, right? So the effect of food in your body is not just caloric. This shit doesn't have any of those effects. And so just because you're tracking macronutrients, you're not tracking anything different than calories, and you are considering at the end your method doesn't discern from this, and you do it long enough and you're not gonna discern from these two, or these two, right? Or these two, right? Maybe you are not so prone to like fructose, or like your body doesn't process fructose very well, or your body doesn't process eggs very well. So like there's a it's a framework. The counting macronutrients is a framework that is very problematic, and how we think our framework, how we approach this problem is fundamental, right? Think about any other instance in which the way you think about something changes your own relationship with that thing. For example, if in your life there's two genders, masculine and feminine, and anything that falls outside is a problem, your world is a very problematic world. The framework matters. If your framework of mind is that the world should be a place in which I can live in peace with everybody else, and that starts by me, that's a better world for everybody else. The framework matters. The way we think about things matters. And so yeah, that got a little bit away, but I think the point is still valid. The way we think about food matters, and so I think this method has that problem. Now, as I said at the beginning, if you know what you're doing, and like any other method, it's a tool. And this applies also to all the other methods. It's a tool, they're all tools, and they're only as good as you apply them, and they're only as good as you are paying as the user, and they're only as good as, if you're using them, they're only as good as the awareness that you're putting into the attention that you're putting into the fact that you're thinking about them, right? And so, yeah, that is it. That is the method of counting macronutrients. As I said, it can be really good as long as you're paying a lot of attention. I think if what you're doing is counting macronutrients to be in a restriction scenario, you are already missing the point, and that should already tell you that like you're not in the case of what I'm telling you that you should be, of awareness. You're outside. But anyhow, yeah, I think that's it. I think now I'm gonna eat one of these snacks because it's my day, and guess I'll put you money in which one should I eat, and which one is gonna, like, just look at this before I leave. Take this image and ask yourself. Just think about this. If you were gonna eat this as a whole me over, which one will hold you over better? Which one is gonna, if you're eating this mid-morning, which one is gonna hold you over to lunch better? Which one is gonna give you more health? Right? Those are the questions that are valid. Those are the questions that are more important. Which one is gonna make your body better? The number of carbohydrates is not as important as all those questions. So yeah, and like, the good thing about these two is they don't have to tell me that they're coming from real food. They are real food. So just keep that in mind, and don't be fooled by protein bars. That is it. Have an awesome week. See ya.